Look, because we feel like we needed a kind of a new narrative for this new era that had been entered into with big tech and digital capitalism. For a while now, we've been talking about libertarianism and even cyber libertarianism as if this is the main way to understand Silicon Valley, that it's about Ayn Rand, it's about visions of colonizing Mars. But in fact, at least since the rollout of ChatGPT in 2022, the big tech companies now realize they need a much closer relationship to the state than they had before. If you're going to build out the kind of data centers that they are building out, if you're going to have federal land opened up to new construction, enormous sources of water, new sources of energy, you can't just do the kind of asset-light version of social media style platform capitalism that they did for many years in the time of Web 2.0. You need to fuse with the state. And someone like Peter Thiel, pioneered this when he made his alliance with Trump in 2016 already. But now, as we know, the rest of the Silicon Valley leadership class has followed behind, literally standing and sitting behind Trump at the inauguration. So any vision that this is libertarian, I think, is now not helpful. It's a period of what we call state symbiosis, a period of selling sovereignty as a service. And as we know most recently by the Palantir Manifesto and the fast tracking of Project Maven into the military software and technology of warfighting in the United States. It's a time when the fates of the state and the fates of these companies is now extremely wound up with one another. And we need to sort of understand that dependency that's been produced, because SpaceX too will be fast-tracked into the indexes so that people's pension funds, college retirement funds, all of these sort of things are now going to be part and parcel of often the quite vicious and xenophobic visions of the founder CEOs like Elon Musk.
This is Elon Musk talking about an imagined future built on AI and robotics in which there's no money and everyone could get a free trip to Saturn.
It's really the only path to amazing abundance is AI and robotics. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if you could buy a trip to Saturn? Or frankly, if you just have a trip to Saturn, I think things will just be free in the future. It sounds nuts, but if you've got an AI robotics economy that is anywhere close to 1 million times the size of the current Earth economy, literally any need you possibly want can be met. If you can think of it, you can have it. So I think Ian Banks, in his culture books, has it pretty much right, where there actually isn't money in the future, and there's abundance for everyone. If you can think of it, you can have it.
So in your final comments, Professor Slobodian, if you can talk about what he's saying and the changing goals of SpaceX from colonizing Mars to orbital AI data centers.
Yeah, I mean, it almost has to make you laugh to hear these kind of low-energy efforts he makes that seem to be just sort of free associating what he hopes will be enough of a distraction that people won't actually look, A, what his empire is being built on, and B, what day-to-day he pushes out on his platform X, which has now really become a megaphone for a far-right international. I mean, he's talking there about endless abundance and travel to Saturn, but what he talks about from day-to-day on X is the need for remigration, the dangers of racialized immigration, the dangers of falling white birth rates. Palantir's manifesto talks about cultural hierarchies. So one has to look more at the day-to-day production of what they're doing, but more importantly, as you suggest, what the products are that they're actually building. So SpaceX now, its valuation is based on this idea that he's going to be able to put AI data centers in space, totally untested technology, but also that he'll be able to ramp up something called Starlink Mobile, so that he'll be able to provide direct-to-device and direct-to-laptop internet and connectivity for, perhaps the entire planet, at which point he's able to kind of keep the legacy media, as he calls it, keep independent media sources like Democracy Now! Out of the conversation and produce a kind of hermetically closed loop in which people are forced to then ingest the ridiculous things that he says on stage, like the kind that we just saw.
KPFK 90.7 FM, Los Angeles. Yes, we are back with you again. My name is Sly Rivers, a.k.a. Sylvestor Rivers. And this is Cut to the Chase every Friday at 8 a.m. Text your friends and tell them to tune in. Text your enemies, tell them to tune in, and tell everybody to tune in right now because we have a great show today. Everybody experiences, most everybody, health issues. Today we're going to be talking with two ladies who've been advocates of health care without profit. Mm-hmm. Yes, we have Erica Ferriston. Did I say that right?
You did.
And Sheila Bates with us. They was an organization called Healthcare for Us. And they when did you start this organization?
So before we were Healthcare for Us, we were a local chapter of Healthcare for All California, and I joined that local chapter in 2017, and they got a bit co-opted. So with Marine Crews, who you probably know, we started Healthcare for Us, went out on our own.
So Healthcare for Us, what that is as you know, there's a crisis in America in healthcare because it's for profit. And there's so much going on as far as, my mom, when I was taking care of her, I said, you know what, Mom, you know what hospitals are for? She said, yeah, to help people, get better. I said, no, they're to make money. Mm-hmm. So maybe before we get into it, and we're going to we'll talk to our two guests, and we might even get I want to play, maybe let's play cut one first. Dr. This testimony, I hope this is not just play it, because there's a lot of people who have stories. And toward the end of the program, we want you to call in if you have a testimonial about your issues with health care. And it goes way beyond that. But let's listen to this number, the cut one, and then we'll get into it, y'all.
So United Healthcare has once again disappointed me as an insurance company because they not only denied an MRI for one of my patients that needed advanced sequences for tumor surgery, but they denied a peer-to-peer. Now, I thought things were supposed to get better after all the complaints on social media, the heat that they've had from all the public opinion, but to take away the peer-to-peer process and have us fill out a form that they're going to fax to us at some unknown time and date. This patient literally needs this MRI so that we can do a safer brain tumor surgery. And yet now they're removing the avenues through which we can even apply for that. So channeling a little bit of Dr. Elizabeth Potter here, United Health, if you are going to deny our ability to order scans or labs that are crucial for carrying out safe patient care, at least make the appeal process easier so that we can do so.
Okay, that was a quick. I was looking up the name of the doctor. There was a doctor who was assassinated.
I'm more thinking of the CEO
of
United Healthcare,
the CEO.
Who was
assassinated. He was shot.
He was shot and killed
because of the craziness that I guess somebody's a guy who shot him because he was advocating for somebody else. Anyway, let's get into it.
Well, and what's interesting is really the American public's reaction to that, right?
Yes.
And so it's, not that the American public were happy that this person was killed, but they understood because this person has been the CEOs of these health insurance companies with their pen condemn people to die and unnecessarily suffer by denying them the health care that they should be getting. So I think that is what really, has been so interesting about that situation.
Oh, you know what? We also have this. That's Erica speaking right there, and we also have Sheila on with us.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you for coming and joining us on this conversation. So both of you are advocates of I guess, Medicare for all, single payer, whatever you call it. We're going to get into what happened in California with CalCare, but let me just ask you, why did both of you get into this struggle, this fight to do what Cuba does, and that's have health care for everybody?
You want to start, Sheila?
Sure. Um, as a Black woman and as an organizer with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and Black Lives Matter California and Grassroots, I see and have seen in my family and in my community how incredibly important it is that we have um, full access to healthcare. And right now, the reality is that we don't, right? That it's our access to healthcare is hinged upon our ability to access programs such as Medicare and Medicaid, or having your insurance tied to an employer. Um, and that we know that our access to it is even limited within that, right? That our options are limited, and that people are literally dying because they don't have health care. They're literally dying because of medical apartheid, and that we have to do something to address all of those issues. And that, there's a reason why the California Reparations Task Force named single payer health care as a form of redress for the institution of slavery and the way that that has impacted people in the state of California. And we absolutely need to move forward with having a single payer healthcare system. I lost my niece to medical apartheid. My father and many members of my family have been affected by this as well. I have, and I feel like every Black person in particular has a story where that we can see that this has impacted our lives, and it's time that we move the way that the rest of the world is in having a single payer healthcare system.
You lost a niece. Do you want to go into that? How did you lose a niece because of this crazy system?
My niece died of a blood clot in 2020, and her father actually had a blood clot as well. And we found out later that it was about 10 years before that, and he was supposed to be tested, but instead they just put him on blood thinners. And this was when he had a white primary care physician. When he switched over and had a different primary care physician who was Black, he asked why he was on blood thinners, and he told him. And they said, there should have been more testing. You can't just put somebody on blood thinners. You need to figure out why. And this could be genetic. So any of your siblings need to be tested, but also your children do. And if any of your siblings have it, then their kids need to be tested. And unfortunately, COVID hit, and my niece was supposed to be tested alongside my nephew, and that test was canceled because they found out that it was on my brother and I have different parents. We share a father, and they found out it was on his mom's side of the family. So my sister and I weren't impacted, but his other siblings were. And so all of them were supposed to be tested, and all of their kids were supposed to be tested. And that test was canceled. And unfortunately, shortly thereafter, the test was canceled. My niece ended up dying of a blood clot in 2020 in the midst of the uprising. She was supposed to be going to a protest, and at the last minute decided not to because she wasn't feeling well, and then called 911 because she was short of breath, and was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and unfortunately was not even able to make it to a room, and she died by herself.
Leaves me almost speechless because it's so crazy. The first thing they ask you when you go to the hospital is, what insurance do you have?
That's right. And that's only like that in this country. Cuba, Sheila and I were in Cuba about a year ago. And we toured as well as other members of our board, and we were all day in their hospitals and asking questions. And, the first things they're doing is caring for people and what is ailing them.
This is Cuba. Mm-hmm. Cuba, who the United States is trying to overthrow with healthcare, free healthcare for everybody, guaranteed living for everybody. But the United States is trying to overthrow them. And I was in Cuba, and I realized why. Because they don't want that to be seen here, because then they would lose all their money.
That's right.
818-985-5735 is our number. At the end of the show, like I said, you can give your testimonial. Hit option 1. We're speaking with Erica and Sheila about this healthcare system. They started you worked for, you're part of an organization called Healthcare for Us. And when did it start? And why did you start it? Sheila, I could see why you started, because of what happened to you. And my condolences, and it's sad that has to happen when it really doesn't. And I'll tell you my story and some other people's in a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Healthcare for Us is it's a nonprofit, but more importantly, it's all volunteer. So we are all volunteers in this organization. We don't make any money at all. So we are people with jobs and parents and elderly parents and you name it, and we do this in our spare time because we believe that healthcare is a human right. And I joined this movement in 2017. I was a supporter. I was an elected delegate for Bernie Sanders. And at that time, I felt like, at least on the national level, all I had to do was put all of my energy and focus into getting Bernie elected, and then all of these things that I cared about would be handled, such as, obviously he's Medicare for all. So that was like my big heart, but environment, so many things, right? And then after, he did not make it, his loss.
Endorsing anyway, go ahead.
Yes, exactly. I'm with you on that as well. But at that time, people were calling like, what do we do? What do we do? And I just thought, well, find one or two issues that's close to your heart, focus on that yourself, and trust that your comrades will pick up the other issues that you're not focusing on. And so I went the route of guaranteeing health care as a human right. And what I really liked about, the organization that eventually became Healthcare for Us is I liked the focus on the state of California, because in organizing, I had experienced the more local you go, the more chance of success you have. So, it's like, back in the day when we were protesting the Iraq War, right, we'd have millions of people marching and it wouldn't even make the news. But, you get 1,000 people in your city council member's office, they're sitting up straight. And so when I looked closer, all of our great social justice movements have always started at the state level and then gone national. It hasn't happened from the federal down. It's happened from the grassroots, the local up. So
very interesting concept that we must think about and use as strategies, because we're putting together a strategy, Project 2028, to win.
Yes.
Because I'm tired of losing or getting beaten down. So there was some legislation. First of all, this is not the first time there was legislation. We'll talk about your legislation. There was something in California. I think it went all the way to the governor's office. But at that time, Schwarzenegger was the governor, and he vetoed it.
Well, now this is where you get really interesting. And you're right. This is not the first rodeo, the fourth rodeo, or the 10th rodeo. This fight for single-payer health care in California goes back 100 years. But what you are talking about reveals something very important. So at the time that Schwarzenegger was governor, there was a health care for all bill written by Sheila Kuehl. Okay.
I remember that. Yeah.
And we had Democrat majority in the Assembly and the Senate. That bill passed the Assembly and it passed the Senate, and as you said, it was vetoed by the Republican Governor Schwarzenegger. Then they brought it back again during his term. It passed the Assembly, it passed the Senate, and it was vetoed again. Now let's bring in Jerry Brown. When Jerry Brown back in the day ran for president, he was all about single payer health care. Basically, these same assembly members and senators, because here's the thing, these people just rotate seats, all right? When their term in assembly is finished, they just run for Senate. When their term for Senate is finished, they go back to the assembly. When all that's done, they
Well, you can
come
go
down.
back?
Well, like they just switch seats. If they start in the assembly, they go to the Senate. If they start in the Senate, they go to the assembly. And when that's done, they go to the city council. When that's done, they go to the county supervisors. And my point is, it was pretty much the same makeup of the same people who passed it under Schwarzenegger, the same Democrats who passed it under Schwarzenegger. Now, all of a sudden, they pass it through the assembly, but it fails in the Senate. Or they'll pass it in the Senate because this is a game. They passed it when they knew the Republican governor would veto it. And the reason why they do this is because it keeps their Democratic base on board, but it also keeps their medical industrial complex donors on board because they're like, hey, we're just playing a game with these people. We know Schwarzenegger will veto it. So now all of a sudden you have Jerry Brown who says he supports this, and the same people can't get it passed through the Senate and the Assembly when they just did it twice before.
That's really amazing what you're saying. And that, when you started, that was going through my mind. Is this a game? Because we're talking to Erica Ferenston and Sheila Bates about health care for all that we need desperately. So your bill is probably similar to what we're talking about in the past, right?
Yeah, it's better.
And we have what you call a supermajority Democrats, whatever that means.
And what that means is you don't need one Republican to vote in favor of this bill to pass.
But and my point is that Democrats, that means it's good or better. Not true. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Better than Republicans, probably most of the time. But to do the right thing, no. I mean, so you're assuming with the supermajority, because I remember on your website it said, oh yeah, got a supermajority, this should go through. And then you tell me it didn't go through.
That's right. Sheila, do you want to pop in here?
Yes, Sheila.
Sure. I mean, unfortunately, what we saw with CalCare is what we see with a lot of the legislation. So in addition to being a board member on Healthcare for Us, I am also an organizer with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, California, and Grassroots. And we have carried a lot of legislation and supported a lot of legislation. And unfortunately, we saw what happened here happen numerous times on a lot of bills that we carry. Because yes, there's a supermajority in the state of California, technically, of Democrats, but a lot of them are Democrats by name only. And we also have to remember that the Democratic Party in many ways has abandoned its base and has abandoned its core principles that it originally was founded on. And the other thing that I would also say is that we also see that the opposition is strong and that it is, as Erica uplifted, insurance companies, it is hospitals and the medical industrial complex. But also, interestingly enough, on the last piece of legislation, one of the first people and organizations to oppose it was actually a police association. Right. And so why is a police association? I see your face. Why is a police
Probably because they have benefits.
But
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean
no,
to.
but it's why is a police association opposing a healthcare bill, right? And it's because they have a vested interest. And it shows there's a reason why I'm saying police association and not union, right? For example, there are many unions who have signed on in support of CalCare and single payer healthcare, but a police association has come out in opposition of a piece of legislation that's for single payer healthcare. That doesn't make any sense. And I think it really shows who police associations are. In the way that they bully and bribe politicians, but also in the fact that they are counter to what we as the people need. And this is why we say they're not a union. And so there are so many interests that are way more important at the state legislature and to the governor, including those who are lining their pockets for their campaigns and for other purposes, as well as the fact that some of these people are really not actually Democrats. And again, being a Democrat, as you uplifted, isn't going to save us, right? We know that we have had a Democrat in office as for governor and for president and all sorts of offices, and they have not actually done numerous times what they say they're going to do and not have delivered on their promise. And that includes Newsom.
Yeah, they do a Trump on us. They say it and then they lie. I mean, what was his name? Obama came out with, he wanted a single payer, and then all of a sudden he said, well, let's do this thing instead. Oh, the insurance company loved him. Go ahead. You can go.
Yeah. And so just kind of tagging on to some of the things Sheila shared, we at Healthcare for Us, we are abolitionists, and we see this bill as the part of abolition that builds up. We see healthcare as an instrumental, foundational step in shifting us from an economy of a punishment, of destruction, to an economy of care, right? And so this is the care of abolitionists' work, kind of as a policy. And we think one of the reasons why, we see what would look like strange people opposing this bill, like the police, this bill is really a bill where so many issues intersect, right? So this is a bill, it's on the positive, it's a revenue generator, it's a job creator, it's an anti-racist bill, it's an anti-fascist bill. It greatly uplifts our unhoused brothers and sisters. So, I mean, the roots of the care of this bill go beyond medical care, go beyond mental health care. It is environmental care. It is financial care, and part of what this bill does is it, as you said earlier, it removes the profit from healthcare. We don't believe profit in healthcare doesn't work.
That's true.
And that's not to say like doctors and nurses, they will get paid, a good amount of money, but that's different than profit. You talked about the CEO of United Healthcare, right? Brian Thompson. This person and these insurance companies make profit. A handful of people make enormous profit off of denying people health care. And the fact that this bill has died, Sheila mentioned Newsom, he ran on single payer and ran on it hard. And in fact, I have a quote from September 2017 from his campaign where he said there's no reason to wait around on universal health care and single payer in California. You have my firm and absolute commitment as your next governor that I will lead the effort to get it done. We will have universal health care in the state of California. That's what he ran on. Those are his words.
So-
This is the third time.
So if he got to him, you think it would have been passed. But
No, he gave an order. Don't get this on my desk.
okay,
Is what we believe. Because why do we believe that? He is the head of the Democratic Party as governor of California. He has a Democratic supermajority. Prop 50, he wanted it to happen. It happened. He alone has taken over $23 million from Blue Cross.
okay.
Or maybe it's Blue Shield. You might want to correct me there, Sheila. But and so that's what we believe is happening. Also, listen, AB 1400 in 2022, that passed. It got to the floor of the assembly before the bill was pulled and wasn't voted on. The last round, it went through, it passed through the Health Committee and was killed in appropriations by Assemblymember Buffy Wick, who was a co-sponsor of the previous CalCare bill, and which is the California single payer bill that's written by the California nurses. We love our doctors, but the nurses are the front line, and so they are the ones who bring this bill every time. This time, and what Buffy Wick said was, well, we have a budget deficit, and that's why we can't move this bill forward. Now, a couple of weeks ago, you have Newsom tweet bragging how he's built the world's fourth largest economy in the world in California. And that's why we suspect then this time the bill didn't even get out of rules, because you can't then claim, oh, we have to kill this bill because we have a budget deficit, and be tweet bragging, well, we have the world's fourth largest economy, which we do. When
also the bill is written as a policy only piece of legislation. So there's no money attached to it right now, because we have to pass the bill at the California state level. Then we have to apply for a federal fee waiver. Then when the funding comes in, then the bill goes in place. But additionally, what's important to recognize here is that there's also the fact that this bill would actually save the state money. A single payer healthcare system would save the state of California money, because almost 1/3 of the money that we pay into healthcare, quote unquote healthcare, goes directly to insurance companies. Once you cut out that middleman, you are saving 1/3 of the money right there. And there's also the additional cost savings of being able to make direct negotiations and to drive down prices in other ways, because we see that Medicare and Medicaid is a very effective way to deliver healthcare, and that it has also saved money. So it's using that same model.
That's Sheila Bass, and we also have Erica Ferriston. I don't know why I'm pronouncing it right, but for some reason,
it's a common mistake.
They are right here. They're here with us on the air, and woo, this is getting. I'm getting it now. Money, it seems to be the bottom of everything. Big pharma is huge. These corporations are running America.
Yes.
Let me say that the corporations, and that's what basically y'all are saying, that these corporations and, the politicians have to get donors, they have to get people contributing to their campaigns, and they play this game. So we're getting played, y'all. Mm-hmm. We're getting played. There's a cut I want to play, number 3, healthcare provider. And this is what this lady is saying.
My least favorite part about being a healthcare provider is dealing with insurance companies. It bothers me to my core that they are allowed to dictate the kind of care that my patient gets. So one of my patients came in about 2 months ago, and she was down bad. Depression was through the roof. She was having thoughts of ending it all. I said, let's start this adjunct therapy medication. You take it with your antidepressant. It helps to make things better. I gave her a month's worth of samples, because I already know I had to do the prior authorization paperwork to get the medication covered. I already know how they are. So I gave her the samples up front so she could get started right away. Fast forward a month later, she comes back for our follow-up. She says this is the best she has felt in years. She is active. She is happy. She is enjoying life again. I'm like, wonderful. Things are great. I'm happy. She's happy. The medication is working. She is back in my office a week later in tears because the insurance company refuses to cover her medication. With insurance companies, there's a list of approved medications that they're going to pay for. She has already tried every medication on their list. It did nothing for her, which is why we went to this medication. She said they told her it doesn't matter. They are not going to cover her medication. She was hysterical because she didn't know what she was going to do. You mean to tell me that when someone finds something that works for them, something that is keeping them from ending it all, they can't have that medication because it's not on your approved list? My patient can't have what works for her because it's too expensive for the insurance company. It bothers me to my soul. So when she came in the month before, I had already given her all the samples that we had. So I called the drug rep. I'm like, listen, I need you to bring me some samples ASAP. I got her 2 months worth of samples, And we also started the paperwork to get her the financial assistance to get the medication covered because homegirl needs her medication. But I don't feel like we should have to jump through hoops to get a patient the care that they need. Like, it makes no sense to me. How is it that non-providers get to dictate what is best for a patient? Y'all are not here. Y'all are not in the trenches with us. Y'all are not seeing these people fall apart. You are not seeing how the right medication can change a person's life. But you can sit behind a desk and say, oh no, we're not going to pay for that because it's too expensive. Because y'all need to make sure that the money stays in y'all pockets. That irks me. Like, I cannot stand insurance companies.
And that's what Erica and Sheila are talking about right now.
So
Think about how demoralizing that has to be for her, because for both the provider and for the patient, because yes, she's, by virtue of this provider doing all that she can to sort of skirt the system. Think about how demoralizing that is to have to fight to save your own life and have to fight to get access to the medication and the healthcare that not only that you need, but that you deserve, because healthcare is a human right. This is talking about whether or not a person survives or lives. It's literally sick.
it is a sick system, and the moral injury that our doctors are facing because of this is huge. This is why we are having a crisis of not having enough doctors. Number one, they graduate in such debt. And number two, with private equities, I mean, these doctors can't even really put up their own practice anymore. They're working, under these private equity firms that are timing them. Okay, you only get 15 minutes with this patient. So
Right.
what this doctor, is doing is extraordinary. This doctor, though, like when we call the insurance company, if you have insurance, this doctor is calling the same number we're calling, right? This doctor's on hold for this one patient as long as we're on hold. And the bottom line is, in our system, in the United States of America, doctors are not free to practice medicine. They have these insurance companies telling them they can and they cannot do. And that brings us to this bill, CalCare. This time it was Assembly Bill 1900, that has been brought. This is the third time it's been killed under Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership with a supermajority. And I got to say, if Newsom can't pass CalCare with a supermajority, he cannot deliver as president. But let me tell you about this bill. There's 7 main principles. One is universal coverage, everybody in, nobody out. Everybody, regardless of race, sex, gender identification, country of origin, disability status, immigration status, marital status, age, income. Everyone gets the care they need, regardless of ability to pay. Now, this is a super important principle because we know that separate is never equal, ever. So when you have seniors get this kind of health care, and people poor people get this kind of health care, and people without documentation, that's separate. It'll never be equal. And we know that the elites and the people with money will defund for those people and take it for themselves. So this everybody in the same system, this is the safety mechanism for true single payer healthcare that works for everybody, because the governor would then be defunding it for his own family or the senator or whoever, and they're not going to do that because there's not a separate system for them to get their own. So that's a really super important principle. Sheila, if you want to take any of the 7 principles and jump in, go right ahead. If not, I can keep going.
Go ahead and do this next one. Let me pull them up so I'm actually reading them.
Yeah. So the other part that makes this, it's a single payer publicly funded program. So it's publicly funded but privately delivered. So when you hear people say it's communism or it's socialism, not that we have a problem with communism or socialism, but I'm just pointing out a difference. This is just a payment mechanism. Like traditional Medicare, you go to any doctor, privately run doctor, the government pays your bill. You hand them your Medicare card. So this is just a payment
But now,
system.
when you work, I see a line that says money to Medicare. Do I not? I've been self-employed for so long, I don't remember. But don't they take that out? So we already paid for it.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of people say, how are we going to pay for this? We're pretty much already paying for it. Sheila pointed out the savings we would get by abolishing the insurance
Insurance.
companies. And then at that point, we would have about 30% to make up to fully fund every human being in California. And there's various ways. One is getting the federal
What about
grant money.
30%, you said?
Yeah, so it's not that
Wow.
much. And there's so many,
30%
like,
is-
we could have a billionaire tax to pay for that. We could
That's
tax
true.
oil extraction for that. Sheila, you want to take the next one?
Yes, fully comprehensive benefits includes medical, and y'all hear this out, dental and hearing and vision, because your eyes and your teeth and your ears are a part of your body, and that also should get the care that we all need and deserve, and that they all impact each other, right? Prescription drugs, long-term care, and more. All decisions about care would be made between you and your doctors and nurses, not the insurance companies. A perfect example of this is I injured my knee in 2019 when Torrance PD brutalized me when I was standing up for Christopher DeAndre Mitchell. I had been complaining about my knee for years. Nobody said that they could do anything. It's just we can't do anything about it. The cartilage in your knee is destroyed. We can't do anything for you. Fast forward to last year, I got in a car accident, injured my other knee, and because I was in a car accident and an attorney got involved, they offered me a care that was called PRP, plasma replacement therapy. And I asked them, I said, I was never offered this. Is this a brand new thing? I was never offered this when I injured my other knee. And they said, no, it's not that. It's the fact that we don't even tell people about it because it's not covered by insurance. So we don't even tell people about it because most people can't afford to do it. But since you have an attorney involved and it's an insurance claim, you can get this therapy for your knee that will not just mask the pain, but will help your cartilage to regrow and to actually address the underlying issue so that your knee is actually able to repair itself and is actually healing itself.
Yeah,
Which
so
is
it's
wild.
comprehensive. It's comprehensive care. It's everything you could think of. Now, under this bill, CalCare, you would have the freedom to choose your own doctor, your own clinic, your own provider. We don't have that freedom right now. You go to where your insurance company says you can go, and that changes at random times. You can be going to your doctor for 20 years, and then all of a sudden, you can't
They're
go
not
there
in
anymore.
network.
They're not in the network. So there's no more in network, out of network.
It also covers birth workers and doulas, which is incredibly important when we think about the maternal health crisis, particularly for Black women, when Black women are 3 to 5 times more likely to die in childbirth. And when we know that one of the ways to intervene in that is by having doulas and birth workers
Let's
attend.
do this. Let's go. This is so interesting to me. Let's go to Ife, and we'll come right back because she's right on that same topic. She just, you know, Ife, Chai. Tell me when you're ready. You gonna throw in the hat, or what you gonna do? Ife Jai, welcome to
Hey
back to
now.
Cut to the Chase.
Good to be back.
Of course, she used to be the co-host of Cut to the Chase. So we're talking to her because the show, of course, is talking about for-profit healthcare. And Ife, you just had a beautiful experience. Well, you had a baby. I don't know how the experience was, but yes, she just had a baby. So you had some issues. Now, does this deal with for-profit healthcare? Explain.
Yeah, so I am grateful, obviously, to have birthed a beautiful son. He was born on March 24th. But unfortunately, I had a terrible experience with the healthcare system. And what I'm come to realize is that, I'm not alone. There are several Black women specifically that go to hospitals for birthing experiences, and they have terrible, terrible, terrible times. And so, unfortunately, I think I was a statistic. I'm a statistic, I went into a for-profit hospital right here in Beverly Hills in Los Angeles, and it essentially was ignored.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm going through the birthing, journey, I was ignored. I didn't have a voice at all. The doctors didn't listen, and they seemed to already have a protocol that they wanted to follow, which results for many women and resulted for me in having a C-section, and what I come to realize is that there are many women who've had not only a C-section, but are kind of curtailed to having that decision because it's a lot more money. Many times we assume that the care that's being suggested to us is for our best interest, but in this scenario I don't think that's the case. I think that I was a little ignorant and blind to that experience that many, as I said before, Black women have already gone through. But when it was my turn to be on the operation table, that's when I started to notice that more Black women are encouraged to have C-sections. There's so much of a price difference of having a C-section as opposed to having a natural vaginal birth, and so unfortunately many of us are duped, I think, in a way, to having these operations that are unnecessary because they're more profitable. And when I left, the operation room, my husband happened to hear some of the physicians talking, and they had operated on 5 different women that same morning that they operated on me. So it was a clear, kind of, I want to say protocol, because that's the word that keeps coming to mind. You get the women in there, and then you encourage them to have, or you demand, or result in them having a daggum C-section, and it limits us from having an experience. It limits us from being able to have a voice. It takes away something from our bodies, and I personally am not happy about it. Yeah.
Wow. So was there any complications that made them say that you need the C-section?
Say that one more time, Sly.
Were there any complications or issues of the birth right before the
So I
child was
want to,
born?
yeah, I want to say this. For me, my son kept flipping. He was going head down, and he was going feet down. He was going head down. He was going feet. He was in there doing front flips and somersaults. He was in there exercising, getting ready for birth. Okay. So for me, that was the quote unquote complication. But I want to say this because I want to be really clear. For those of us who are womb men, women, and we have wombs and we know what it's like to bring people in the world, then we know that birth itself is a complication, that there's never a smooth, planned out. You can never foresee what's going to happen in the birthing process. But birth itself has its natural rhythm and its natural order. And when you get into, those healers and birth workers, they'll tell you that same thing. There's a lot of movement right now in Atlanta, even for midwives, to be able to practice and to do their thing, because our people have been bringing children into the world before these hospitals even existed. And so we have to humble ourselves to the birthing process. So even if a baby is, quote unquote, having a complication, there is such a thing as having a life or death situation,
And that
and
wasn't it, I
where,
guess.
yeah, and that was not it. That was not it.
Mhm.
And there's levels to understanding what birthing just looks like, and allowing the birth cycle to take its course. Because some of the issues or the quote unquote complications that occur during labor, some of them iron themselves out if you allow a woman's body to do what it needs to do naturally. And that's the thing that the hospitals are not interested in investing in. They won't provide the time, the space, the opportunity, or even the wherewithal to allow women to have these natural processes, until you get to that point, or life or death. Until you get to that point, you should be allowed to journey, accordingly. But obviously, if there's a moment where the child's life can be saved, then yeah, by all means, maybe a
Wow.
C-section is the best way to go. But that wasn't my case. There's this thing too. I want to say this about the medical care and prevention. there's always this thing about, well, we don't know if this is going to happen. And so we want to prevent that from happening in the first place. Well, we don't know what he's going to do. So there's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of, let's do this just in case.
Yeah, that's Ife Jai talking about her recent experience.
Well, I just want to say I loved listening to Ife on your show. So that was kind of a fun treat for me to hear. I didn't know she's a mom now.
Again.
And
And that wasn't her first rodeo.
Okay. So that was fun. But one of the 7 principles of this bill is patient care based on patient need. Right now, because of the profit in our healthcare system, people will, if it makes them money to deny people care, they will be denied. They won't get that test. Okay. But if they make money to give care that people don't need, such as a C-section or an MRI that they don't need, they will get it because it is profit driven. And this bill removes the profit and allows for, again, patient care based on patient need, freedoms for doctors to practice.
So if, before Sheila, you go. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying, because I know people going to the hospital, so many tests, that makes money. That's what you're saying, right? The tests you can bill Medicare, they get money.
Yes. And so again, we have it's on both sides. You may need a test, and if it costs them too much money, you won't get it. You may not need a test, and if they're going to profit from it, you're going to get it.
Yeah,
and that's not good health care.
Wow. Sheila, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we really need to make sure that is crystal clear is that the reason why we don't have healthcare in this single payer healthcare in this country is because of anti-Blackness. That it was in a actual hearing, they were talking about it, and 2 things happened. As one, they wanted to make sure that they could try and exclude Black people. And so they made sure that that they had to pay a certain amount, and they were hoping that we wouldn't be able to pay that amount to be able to access healthcare. And
Sheila, I love what you're saying, but who is the they? Go ahead, keep going.
Oh, and this was when they were in Congress, when they were talking about
Okay,
having,
Congress people. Okay.
yes.
This is the 20% gap in Medicare. The reason why there's that 20% gap is what Sheila is saying. It's anti-Blackness.
They wanted to make sure that they wanted to try and keep us out of it. So they originally were saying, oh, we're just not going to have single payer healthcare and all of these things, right? Because they literally wanted to deny Black people care. What happened next was that it was exactly what Erica was speaking about, right? Is that they said that you have to pay a minimum of 20% into it in order to be able to get care, in another effort to try and keep Black people from being able to get healthcare. The ways that they try and kill us in this country is we cannot even count it. Literally, anti-Blackness, as you know, is baked into every single system, including healthcare. And I just wanted to make sure that it was crystal clear that that's the reason why we're in this position that we are now, is because of anti-Blackness.
Wow. We're talking to Erica Fairstein and Sheila Bates on health, money. My next door neighbor is a retired heart surgeon. He worked at King Hospital, and he told me the same thing. He was a heart surgeon, but the hospital said he would diagnose the patient and said, this is the best treatment for him. The hospital said, no, do this, stent or whatever it was, because it moves quicker. It's the same thing. We make more money. That's what he told me.
Yeah.
So what's next, y'all? This bill didn't pass. What is next?
You want to take that, Sheila, or you want me to go?
You go ahead and go, and I can hop in after.
Well, I think we mourn for a minute because we worked.
And then jump up and start the fight over again. And we're going to win the next time.
And then we're going to jump up and start the fight again. You know, I'm personally at the point, part of the direction this fight is taking me is I don't see that the establishment 2-party system is going to get it. So I'm supporting things like third party, ranked choice voting. we have to break this duopoly.
Yes.
I personally will be writing in Butch Ware for governor of
Well,
California.
hopefully he has a lawsuit. Hopefully he'll be on
Hopefully,
the ballot.
but so I know that's not a direct answer to your question, and that's me.
And healthcare for us does not endorse candidates.
That's right. So that's just me talking as an individual. But as far as us as an organization, we are not going to quit. And we are taking just a moment to look at, what are the best next steps. We do know that one of the things that we must continue to do, which is why we're so grateful to be on your show, is to continue to educate people what this bill is, because the more educated the people are, the less they can keep killing this in the dark. And so, bill, no bill, we will be out there. We will be educating people.
That's Erica Ferriston, and that we also have Sheila Bates who's going to tell us what's next. But also, if you have questions for him, the few minutes we have left, I'm going to put Will. Thanks, Will, for being the great engineer you are, and we thank Charlie, who is doing his live streaming this on a couple of media outlets. 818-985-5735. Hit option 1 if you would like to ask my guest questions that I might have missed that are obviously out there. Sheila Bates, what's next?
I think it's a few things. I think it's remembering that that we as the people have power, and that one of the things that we can do is not just about voting for who we want, right? And making sure that we are educated about our votes, right? So that means that anybody who you're voting for state legislature or for governor, find out what their position is on CalCare, right? And it's not only just do you support it, but the question that you follow up with that is, are you going to fight to make sure that it passes in the legislature while you are there? Additionally, it's making sure that it's clear that there are political consequences when you do not follow through on what you say is going to happen, which that means, yes, Newsom, you failed us in California. And so that means you don't get to make it to the White House, right? It means that, and I'm saying this as an individual person, it means that when a person is failing us at any given step, at any given office, we don't elect them higher. We don't let people fail up, right? And it's also about making it crystal clear that we as the people have the power to continue to do this. And it's about being on the ground, and it's things like mutual aid. It's things like community care clinics, that making sure that we are doing what we can to make sure that the Black Panther Party was doing this before, right?
Yes, they had free healthcare centers. Go ahead with it. Go on with it. I'm hearing. I'm listening.
That's right. And so that's what we have to make sure that we're continuing to do, because we know that these systems are not going to save us, but we know that we must do everything that we can, because we know that healthcare is a human right. And so we are going to we're going to fight the battle on all of the fronts to make sure that our people survive, and to make sure that they do get access to the care that we need.
Whew. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to mention that the Black Panthers they did have free health care clinics. We had a couple callers. You can keep calling in. One dropped out, one's still there. We'll get to see if they have any questions for our guest. Sheila's still with us. Erica had to leave. So let's go to see the callers and see if they have any. Let me see what we have here. Yes, what's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from East LA. I'm from East LA. I'm not there now, but my name is Stan.
Stan, good morning, good grand rising. What's up? Buenos dias. Pork beans and weenies. Go ahead.
Yeah, as an ex-medical person who dropped out way back in the mid-'80s, because of what was going on with our healthcare system. I mean, I just couldn't take it anymore, so I just quit. And I haven't been in that field at all anyhow. But the point is that, first of all, I want to tell you, for unity's sake, every person should go to pasoir.com, and it's about unification, having all colors get together and do something proper. Now, as regards medical profession and what's going on, our issue is do we have a right, which I took when I was young, to damage our bodies? The question is our social community responsible for that? So if people are damaging their bodies as I did and then quit, and now I'm almost, in my 80s and got healthy, I can see where I had the right to do what I did, but I don't have the right to cause it on my health on other people. It's a very difficult situation. Now, here's the deal. We've
got a couple other callers, so go ahead and wrap up your point, please.
Okay, really quickly. We need to become a government that has people from 0 to 25 be proud, be thankful to be part of this government. We don't have that. We need to put it together. So go to that website, and I'll call you next week. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Sheila, you want to comment on that? Okay, let's move forward.
I mean, I think a lot of people, rightfully so, are losing faith in the government, right? And that's because so many things are happening, and that we're seeing what feels like the system falling apart in front of us. I think one thing that also needs to be said is that this is not the system failing us. This is not the system broken. This is the system working as it was intended. It just wasn't intended for all of us.
Right. I have a commentary on that I'm going to share in a couple of weeks, too. So let's move on, because we'll have like a minute or two left. We have Laverne online, too. Or was that Laverne? No, Laverne, are you there?
Yes, I too have experienced terrible hospital care, not care, but attention. And I am wondering why it is that Cuba can educate medical professionals at no cost to those professionals and America doesn't. Maybe that needs to be added to the agenda. I know your plate's full, but have you considered having free doctor education?
If I may jump into that, nothing's free in America. This is capitalism. For profit. Cuba is a socialist, communist country. They try to take care of the people. This country takes care of the money. Look at what's going on now. It's all about the money. They're making so much money. They being President Trump and all his cronies and his family. They're making billions of dollars. So, I mean, the question is, because, see, you have compassion for everybody. They don't.
That's right.
Sheila, go ahead.
That's right. I mean, I think that's the other thing is that that hasn't been completely explicitly named, right? Is that racial capitalism is at the crux of this issue.
Yes.
And that's the reason why we do not have, when we're saying anti-Blackness, is why we don't have a single payer healthcare system. Alongside that is racial capitalism is what drives every motivation in this country for every single industry, right? The fact that we say the medical industrial complex speaks to that, right? And then think about how that is interconnected to the prison industrial complex, to the policing industrial complex, all of the military industrial complex. All of these systems are interconnected, right? And so there's that part of it, but it's also the fact that an educated populace is dangerous to the state. And so they also do not want us to be fully educated. So because they know that that's also something that can rise up against them. And that's also the reason why we don't have, it's that racial capitalism and it's the fear of an educated populace that is also the reason why we do not have free education.
The education is not education; it's miseducation. It's miseducation.
That's right.
It's indoctrination. But we have to wrap up, so you got.
That's right, and we are absolutely supportive of a free education from birth through graduate, right?
Yeah.
That's
we have like 10 seconds left. We have to go. That's Sheila Bates, y'all. She was along with Erica Ferenstin. My name is Sylvester Rivers. You've been listening to Cut to the Chase. Sorry we couldn't get to other callers, but, we only have an hour. So what can I say? Thank you so much for joining us on Cut to the Chase every Friday at 8 a.m. Thank you. And join us next week. We got a great program next week. Some folks who visited the West Bank and Gaza will be with us. I'm out.
Thank you for having us. a good day.
You're listening to KPFK 90.7 FM, Los Angeles.
Trump drains America's arsenal in Iran. Eric pockets $24 million in a Pentagon grift. EPA hunts abortion pills in your tap. GOP craters, housing frozen, and astronaut sleeps blissfully. Good morning. This is the Commonwealth Report. News for the public, not the powerful. Sign up at commonwealthreport.news. Did Trump just empty America's missile arsenal on Iran? 2 months into Donald Trump's war on Iran, the Pentagon is running